What I am about to share with you is not just theory pulled from abstract concepts or academic research that has no practical application to your daily life. It is a pattern I have observed and researched after years of studying the psychology of highly sensitive people, empaths, and emotional intelligence. A pattern that explains why some individuals seem to possess an almost supernatural ability to read others, while others remain oblivious to the emotional currents around them. And it explains why empaths transform in ways that seem almost supernatural to outsiders, why they evolve from the most broken souls into the strongest, most resilient individuals you will ever meet. If you have ever wondered why you can sense someone's emotional state before they say a word, why you walk into a room and immediately know the mood, why crowded spaces drain you in ways that do not seem to affect others, or why you sometimes feel physical sensations that mirror what people around you are experiencing, this video will give you the scientific framework to understand what is actually happening beneath the surface. Researchers are only beginning to map the neurological basis of empathic sensitivity, but what they have already discovered is nothing short of remarkable. Studies using functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI, have shown that empathic individuals often have mirror neuron systems that are more active than average, that their brains are literally wired differently from the majority of the population. Mirror neurons are the brain's way of simulating others' experiences, allowing us to understand what someone else is feeling by internally mimicking their emotional state. And in empaths, this simulation happens at a level that is both extraordinary and, at times, overwhelming, because they are not just understanding others' emotions, they are experiencing them as if they were their own. Today we are diving deep into the empath's secret weapon, weaponized silence that changes everything, and what you learn may fundamentally change how you view your gift, how you understand your past, and how you navigate your future. The empath's journey is one of constant absorption, a continuous influx of emotional information that most people never even register. While others move through the world with a filter that screens out the majority of emotional data, the empath's filter is either missing or significantly less effective. This means they are constantly bombarded with the feelings, moods, and energies of everyone around them, a relentless stream of information that can be both enlightening and exhausting. This is why empaths often feel drained after social interactions, why they need time alone to recover, and why they sometimes seem to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. But this same sensitivity that can be so overwhelming also gives empaths access to a level of perception that others can only dream of. They can read people with remarkable accuracy, sensing deception, hidden motives, and unspoken emotions with a precision that seems almost psychic. This is not magic. It is simply the result of a nervous system that is processing far more information than the average person's. And one of the most powerful tools in the empath's arsenal is silence, the strategic use of quiet to protect their energy, to observe more clearly, and to shift the dynamics of any interaction. Silence is one of the most misunderstood and powerful tools in human psychology, a force that is often underestimated by those who have not learned to wield it. Research by Dr. Namke Kudenberg on conversational silence shows that strategic silence creates what psychologists call social gravity, a pull that draws people toward you because it creates uncertainty that demands resolution. When you stop explaining yourself, something profound happens in the psychological dynamic of any relationship. You shift from a position of seeking approval to a position of self-containment, from needing validation to being complete within yourself. This shift changes everything, transforming how others perceive you and how you perceive yourself. Studies by Fennis and Staple on persuasion dynamics show that individuals who appear self-contained and non-reactive are perceived as higher status and more credible than those who are constantly seeking approval. They are seen as having more power, more confidence, and more value, simply because they do not need to prove themselves. The mechanism behind this is what researchers call the scarcity principle, extensively documented by Cialdini in his work on influence. When explanation and justification are freely available, they are valued less, because they are abundant and easy to obtain. When they become rare, each word carries significantly more weight, because it is precious and hard to come by. Your silence becomes a form of psychological scarcity that increases your perceived value, making people pay more attention when you do speak. But strategic silence is not passive-aggressive withdrawal, not a way to punish others with silence. It is not the silent treatment, which is a form of emotional manipulation designed to control others through withholding. True silence is active and conscious, a deliberate choice to conserve your energy and protect your peace. Research by Gross on emotion regulation distinguishes between suppressive silence, which is repressive and harmful to your well-being, and reappraisal-based silence, which is strategic and empowering. Suppressive silence is when you swallow your feelings and pretend they do not exist, which leads to increased stress and emotional dysregulation. Reappraisal-based silence is when you consciously choose not to engage because you recognize that engagement would not be productive, that the other person is not open to understanding. This kind of silence is healthy because it is a choice rather than a reaction, a decision made from a place of clarity rather than fear. In the context of relationships, when you stop chasing and explaining, you create what is called an absence vacuum, a void that cannot be ignored. Studies on loss aversion by Kahneman and Tversky show that people experience losses approximately twice as intensely as equivalent gains, meaning the pain of losing something is far greater than the pleasure of gaining it. Your absence becomes felt as a loss, which triggers a more profound psychological response than your presence ever could, because people are wired to notice what is missing more than what is present. The research by Bo on relational dissolution shows that the person who ends pursuit typically experiences an increase in perceived value, while the person who is pursued experiences uncertainty and anxiety. This dynamic shift is why walking away can be so powerful. It fundamentally restructures the power dynamic, placing the empath in a position of strength rather than weakness. The key insight is that your silence must be paired with genuine self-sufficiency, with a real commitment to your own well-being. If you are silently hoping for a reaction, you are not truly silent. You are just playing a different game of manipulation, one that is just as draining and ultimately just as unsatisfying. True silence means you have genuinely redirected your energy toward your own growth and well-being, that you are no longer invested in the outcome of the other person's response. The silence is a byproduct of your investment in yourself, not a tactic to provoke a response, because genuine self-care does not need an audience. This distinction matters because research on authentic versus inauthentic behavior shows that people can sense the difference even when they cannot articulate it, that their intuition picks up on the subtle cues that reveal your true motivation. Genuine self-containment has a different energetic quality than strategic withdrawal designed to elicit a reaction, a quality that is felt even if it cannot be named. When you are truly silent because you are truly focused on yourself, people feel the shift in your energy. They sense that you are no longer waiting for them, no longer hoping they will change, no longer needing their approval. This is when the dynamic shifts permanently, because the old patterns can no longer continue. The empath who has stopped explaining has stopped hoping that words will fix what only action can change. They have accepted that some people will never understand, and they have made peace with that acceptance. This acceptance is not resignation, not a giving up on life. It is a release, a letting go of the burden of being understood by everyone. It is the recognition that your peace is more important than their approval, and that you are allowed to protect that peace even if it means being misunderstood. The empath's secret weapon, weaponized silence, is not about punishing others or controlling them. It is about protecting yourself, about creating a space where you can breathe, think, and heal. It is about reclaiming your energy from those who would drain it and redirecting it toward your own growth and well-being. The journey of the empath is one of constant learning, of discovering how to use their gifts without being destroyed by them. The empath who learns to wield silence as a weapon is not someone who has become cold or heartless. They are someone who has finally learned that their energy is precious, that they do not have to give it away to everyone who asks, that they are allowed to protect their peace even when others do not understand. They are someone who has learned that silence is not empty, that it is filled with the power of self-awareness, the strength of self-control, and the wisdom of knowing when to speak and when to remain quiet. This is the secret weapon that changes everything, the tool that allows the empath to navigate the world without being overwhelmed by it, to connect with others without losing themselves in the process, and to use their sensitivity as a source of strength rather than a source of suffering. Understanding the empath's secret weapon, weaponized silence that changes everything, is just the beginning, the first step on a journey that will transform every aspect of your life. The real power comes from application, from taking the insights we have explored and integrating them into your daily existence. So here is what I want you to do with the information we have explored today. A practical plan that will help you move from understanding to action. First, identify your patterns, the recurring themes that have shaped your relationships and your life. Whether you relate more to the empath's journey, the avoidance struggle, the dynamics of manipulation, or the behaviors we have examined, awareness is your starting point, the foundation upon which everything else is built. Take 5 minutes right now and write down the patterns you recognize in your own behavior and in your relationships, the things that keep happening over and over again. Be honest about what you see. This is for your eyes only, a private record of your journey. Second, practice the pause, the moment of awareness that interrupts the automatic reaction. Before reacting emotionally to any situation today, take one breath and ask yourself, is this my old pattern operating, or is this a conscious choice? That single moment of awareness, repeated consistently, changes everything over time because it creates a gap between the stimulus and your response, a gap where choice lives. Third, set one boundary this week, just one, a small but meaningful limit that protects your energy. Make it small but significant, something that matters to you. Notice how it feels to set that boundary, the sensations in your body, the emotions that arise. Notice how others respond, whether they respect it or push against it. This is your training ground for bigger shifts, a practice ground for the boundaries you will set in the future. Research on assertiveness shows that skills develop through progressive practice, just like physical muscles, that each successful boundary strengthens your ability to set the next one. The psychology we have explored today is not just theory, not just abstract concepts that have no bearing on your daily life. It is a practical toolkit for navigating human relationships more effectively, understanding yourself more deeply, and creating the life you actually want, a life that is aligned with your values and your needs. Use it wisely, with compassion for yourself and others. Use it ethically, with integrity and respect. And use it to build the connections that deserve your energy, the relationships that are reciprocal and nourishing. The strongest empaths are not those who have never been broken. They are those who have been broken and chosen to heal, who have been hurt and chosen to grow, who have been drained and chosen to protect their energy. They are the ones who have taken their sensitivity, the very thing that made them feel different and even broken, and transformed it into their greatest asset. They are the ones who have learned that their softness is not weakness but strength, that their ability to feel deeply is not a curse but a gift, and that their journey through pain has given them a wisdom that cannot be learned any other way. The empath's secret weapon, weaponized silence, is the tool that allows them to protect that wisdom, to preserve that strength, and to continue giving without being destroyed by the giving. So if you are an empath who has been broken, if you have felt the weight of the world on your shoulders, if you have been told you are too sensitive too many times, take heart. The very thing that has caused you pain is the thing that will set you free. The journey from brokenness to strength is not easy, but it is worth it, because on the other side of that journey is the person you were always meant to be. The person who feels deeply but is not controlled by those feelings. The person who cares profoundly but does not lose themselves in that care. The person who has finally learned to protect their peace while keeping their heart open. The empath's secret weapon, weaponized silence, is not about becoming cold or distant. It is about becoming whole. It is about learning to use your sensitivity as a tool rather than being used by it. It is about finding the balance between giving and protecting, between connecting and preserving, between loving and maintaining your own identity. And once you have found that balance, you will discover that your silence is not empty. It is filled with the power of self-awareness, the strength of self-control, and the wisdom of knowing when to speak and when to remain quiet. And that is the secret weapon that changes everything. Subscribe to Human Behavior Intelligence for more research-backed insights into human behavior, for videos that combine scientific research with practical wisdom that you can actually use. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who is struggling with their sensitivity and needs to know that they are not alone, someone who is learning to use their silence as a weapon of self-protection. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway, the insight that resonated most deeply with you. And remember, understanding people does not make you cynical. It makes you effective, empathetic, and ultimately more powerful in the best possible way. Because true power comes from understanding yourself and others, not from controlling them. See you in the next video, where we will explore another hidden pattern of human behavior that most people never notice. Until then, stay observant, stay curious, and never stop learning about the fascinating complexity of human behavior. Because the more you understand, the more you can grow, the more you can heal, and the more you can become the person you were always meant to be. And remember, your sensitivity is not a weakness. It is a superpower. And your silence is not emptiness. It is the weapon that will set you free.